Parshat Mishpatim. After having learnt about and read about the Ten Commandments, our Sedra continues from the last one. How do we know? Because it opens by saying Ve'ele HaMishpatim, and these are the laws. And Rashi, our great commentator Rashi, explains Ve'ele, not just Ele, these are the laws, Ve'ele, these are the laws, and Ve'ele, and these are the laws. And he says that the reason you have the and, is to connect all the laws in this week's Sedra that mainly deal with civil law, matters of laws between each other. They connect it to the previous Sedra. In what way? Rashi says, Ma Rishonim Sinai. You should know, just like the previous week the Ten Commandments were from Sinai, so too these laws in this Sedra also are paying, these also are Sinai from Sinai. And what he's referring to over here is that what happened was you had the Jewish people hearing the Ten Commandments on Sinai, whether it was the 6th of Sivan or 7th of Sivan. There's a difference of opinion in the Talmud, but ultimately everybody heard the Ten Commandments. And then what happened? We are told that Moshe went up for 40 days afterwards in order to study more of the Torah, and then gave them the Torah after that. He came down with the tablet which he smashed 40 days later. So initially on Sinai, on that day, he went up and received. He came down effectively, and then he went back up for 40 days in order to receive the Torah. And that is what Rashi is pointing out, to say that these two were received from Sinai, particularly because they are laws that are all about logic, really. They're about how we deal with each other. And an insight into this is that Rashi is telling us that not only the statutes, not only the ones that are irrational, the commandments that we don't understand and we can never hope to understand, are they given from Sinai and we should keep them because God commanded us, but also the laws that are logical, that have a rationale, have a meaning to them. Those two are also from Sinai, and we should keep them because Hashem has commanded us. And when we do keep them, the do not steal, do not kill, and all the other civil laws of how we treat each other that are contained within this portion and many others, when we do keep them, not only are we doing something that makes sense, but we are fulfilling the word of Hashem, the command of Hashem, and we get the merits for it. And in fact, Rashi tells us that Moshe initially thought, right, I'm going to teach them a couple of times all the laws, and as long as they know what to do, that's enough. I'm not going to tell them all the meanings and reasoning behind it, because then what they'll do is they will keep it based on their logic. If they understand it, they will keep it. If not, they won't. He knew how we operate. Hashem told him, in fact, no. These are the laws asher tosim lifnehem, which you should place in front of their meaning, that they need to understand them as well. It's not simply enough that they know what to do. We need to understand, and there's so much of the Torah that we do understand. We get a lot of bad publicity, that we don't understand things. In fact, the statutes are only a very small in number. There is so much about the meaning and the background to the mitzvahs that we don't tend to study. There is so much understanding that we could have into why we keep the mitzvahs. And this is what Hashem says to him, Tasim lifnehem, you should place in front of them, make sure that they do understand. Even though Moshe was concerned that we might base it simply on our logic, he says no, make sure they understand, and then ultimately they will keep the Torah, not only because they understand, but also because Hashem commanded the Torah, commanded us to keep the Torah. This is a very important lesson for us, to understand that why do we keep what we keep? It's not based on logic, because that changes. People understand things in a different way, and ultimately if the Torah says something has to be one way, this is the way it needs to be, regardless of whether we understand it or not. Primarily we keep it because Hashem told us. The fact that we do understand lots of what we do, particularly the civil laws, do not kill, do not steal, do not commit adultery, and so on, that is a bonus in a way. That's not the starting point. Starting point is na'aseh v'nishma. We will do, and then we will hear. And that's really what's being brought out over here, particularly with the civil laws, where there is room to say it's simply based on logic and rationale. Now let's look at a couple of those laws. The Torah tells us that if we see if you see the donkey of somebody you hate, that is roivei tachas masoi, that is struggling under its load, ozoiv tazoiv imo, you should surely help him. Now, it's very strange for the Torah to use this strong language of somebody that you hate. We're not allowed to hate people. Why would it be somebody that we hate? And the rabbis explain the only thing you can hate is a sin. Not the person, but the sin. And this is the message that is being brought out over here. If you see somebody who has sinned, he's roivei tachas masoi, he's under his burden, he cannot cope with his burden, and he has sinned, and therefore you might have room to hate what he is doing. But if you see that he needs help, you must help him, regardless of what the person has done. Yitamu, we are told, Yitamu chasoim in haaretz, that sin should be eradicated from the earth. That's what King David says in Tehillim, but not choitim. A rabbi tells us it doesn't say sinners, but rather sin. And the Torah is teaching us a lesson over here. You may have room to hate somebody, or hate what he does, but never hate the individual. And never cross that line between hating what the person does and condoning what he does to saying I hate the individual. If a person genuinely needs help, regardless of what he has done, we need to help that individual. Don't judge the person, but at the same time, don't accept what he does. Don't condone what a person does. But if a person needs help, we must help him. That's an understanding, an insight into Yisirach Hamorta Nasa. If you see the donkey of somebody that you hate, i.e. the donkey is the sin, representing the sins, that you can hate. But the person, if he needs help, you need to help him. We're also told, a reminder about the mitzvah of Shabbos, that Sheishet Yomim, 6 days we should work, or Vayom Hashvi, on the seventh day, then Tishbot you shall rest. And then the Torah says, Leman Yanuach, in order that Shorcha v'chamarcha, your ox and your donkey shall rest. Why does it say Leman Yanuach, in order that they should rest? So the explanation that is given is that Leman Yanuach is, if we rest, Vayom Hashvi Tishbot, we should rest on the 7th day. And if we rest properly, then even our donkeys and our oxen will have rest, because we won't make them work, and they will feel Shabbos. There's a famous story in the Talmud with Pinchas ben Yair, a great rabbi who had an animal, who had a donkey, and the donkey used to work for him, and he once hired out the donkey, and he hired it out to a non-Jew, and the non-Jew came back and said, Rabbi, I have a problem. Your donkey won't work on Shabbos, on a Saturday. The rabbi Pinchas ben Yair whispered in his ear that don't worry, you're with a non-Jew and he worked. And the idea is here that all our surroundings need to feel that we have rested. Even Leman Yanuach Shorcha v'chamarcha, if we rest, then our animals will rest as well. They will feel the experience of Shabbos. Now those of you that were watching last week will know that the focus of last week was about the Torah using the singular where you would have expected it to use the plural. And I have another one of these. This week's Sedra, we're told that Va'avadatem es Hashem Elokeichem, that you should serve the Lord your God in the plural. Va'avadatem, you plural should serve Hashem Elokeichem, the Lord your God. And then the Torah says, Uveirach, if you do that, Uveirach, Hashem will bless es lachmecha, your bread singular, ve'es meimecha, and your water singular. You would have expected it to say in the plural. Of course, it's lost in translation because in English, you can be plural or singular. But in the Hebrew, it says plural, you shall serve Hashem, and singular, he will bless your bread and your water. The idea is, very beautifully, that when we are davening, even though we may be collected together as individuals, our davening is joined up together as a plural and brought in front of Hashem. We may be individual people standing in one room praying, but it's brought together as one group of prayer. Whereas when we eat with bread and water, when we eat, we sit together and we eat. Ultimately, we are eating individually. We are eating for our own selves, not necessarily for each other. But when it comes to spirituality, our merits combine with the prayers of each other to make our experience much stronger. And that's why in the service of Hashem, it says in the plural, even though you might be doing it individually. When it comes to the physical aspect, there we take care of each other, and Hashem will each individually bless us individually with what we need individually for our bread and for our water. Thank you for watching, and keep watching.